Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
That's right, Kevin O'Connell. Away we go, even when Phil Mackey and Declan Goff take the day off. You know why? Because it's Thorsday, and Thorsday doesn't rest for anyone. And so AJ producing instead of Dex. Phil is off. They'll both be back on the Friday show, but they're going to miss the Thorsday show, which of course stars our good friend Thor Nystrom, who does such a great job at every platform that he works at. Mr. Football, unbelievable amount of knowledge that he brings to the table, along with a nice side helping of JJ McCarthy love. Thor, how are you doing on this Thursday as we lead into Packers-Vikings? Incredibly important game. I am so pumped when this game is like this big. Whoops, we can't.
Thor,
we can't hear you.
Might have lost your audio, Thor.
Yeah, Thor. Please tell me that his audio is not going to go on the fritz. Please tell me.
No. Not on a Thursday, not like this.
You can just flip a switch and make it all okay. This Christmas. There he is.
You still got me?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, we're on. We're fine. Thursday rest for no one, including Thor.
Yeah, the settings. Maybe it's a post-Christmas hangover there.
It's Packer fans.
It's
Packer fans have gotten to you.
It is Packer fans, which I spent yesterday arguing with a couple. I did find a couple logical Packer fans, which I didn't know they existed in the
They're
wild.
no fun.
We had a Christmas miracle with that. But we're 48, we're 72 hours away from the game. And a huge one, one of the big Vikings Packers games that we have had in. Judd, when's the last time you put a Vikings Packers game in terms of importance where this one is?
Doogie asked me this question. I go back to 2015 because the Vikings clinched the NFC North at Lambeau Field with Teddy at quarterback late in that season. But as far as a magnitude game of like both of these teams are this good, and by the way, the Packers I think are really damn good. It's been a long time, man. It feels like it's been a long time since you had this game this late in the season, and the relevancy for both teams was this high.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, fascinating game. And we're right at the end now, right? I mean, what did they say in that movie that they wrote my part into? We've reached the end game, the Avengers. I mean, this, you have the Packers and then you have the Lions, and I just can't wait for these last two games.
What are your thoughts on this game? Also, just as far as right now with how each team is playing, advantages, because the Packers, again, I'll go back. The Packers are playing really, really well. Like the Packers are a legit team. I think Jordan Love, that first game when the Vikings kicked their behinds in Lambeau in the first half was coming back off the week 1 injury that he had suffered against the Eagles. And The reality was I don't think Jordan Love was healthy for a substantial amount of the season. He is now. The flip-flop of why the Packers let go of Aaron Jones and brought in Josh Jacobs now to me is clear because he is a bell cow guy. I mean, Jones has been great here, and I think he deserves all the credit that he gets. But Josh Jacobs is playing a role that I think if you tried to have Jones play, he probably gets hurt at some point in time. So like when you look at this matchup from both points of view, what do you like from a Vikings perspective, and what concerns you the most that the Packers have that the Vikings might have trouble stopping?
Now, Judd, I don't want to get into your kitchen on this one, but I wrote a few notes for this game, and they're not Judd's camp notes, but Thor's Vikings Packers notes maybe.
You know what? I'm fine with that.
You're fine with that? Okay.
I give you complete permission. You know what? There's no reason not to share it.
Yeah, we need to spitball a couple of things here. So key one for me, and something to watch out for. I'm curious if you agree. I think this could be a big TJ Hawkinson game. I think this could be a big he has been quiet of late. He has made some big catches on money downs, but overall has been a bit more quiet. I think this is the game where he might wake up from his slumber, approach 100 yards with a touchdown. I think this could be a TJ Hawkinson game against the Packers.
Why?
I think that's a matchup that you can exploit, and I think he's getting closer to the 100% that it was like early in the season, there was that criticism of Sam, which probably wasn't right, of like, oh, you're just locking on to Jefferson. And there was we had that like 2 or 3 weeks of free three. And then it was like, oh, is Addison upset? Is it? No, that's just what he said going back to Pitt. And then you had the games where there was all the targets going to Addison. Now, Hawkinson has been back for a sufficient amount of time, gotten back up to speed. I think this is the game where you not go against tendency, but this season with Darnold, this is the healthiest that Hawkinson has been with both Jefferson and Addison on the field. Yep. And I think you can discombobulate the Packers a little bit by funneling more of the targets into Hawkinson. Initially, neutral game script when they're sitting dead red on both Jefferson and Addison. There's no way you're rolling extra coverage resources to Hawkinson. And I think you can chip away at some efficiency between the ground game and then those short intermediate passes to Hawkinson. Maybe he breaks a couple tackles. We get a 20-plus yarder.
I love that thought. And I will say this. So I forget who I was talking to about this a few weeks back, but the thing too is the Hawkinson, he's had some good games. So he's definitely contributed. So this is not he has not contributed conversation, but the thing too is he's coming off. I mean, he came back with no training camp and missed, substantial portion of the first part of the season because he tore 2 ligaments in his knee. I think in retrospect, and I'm probably guilty of this as well, the feeling that he was just going to step back in and assume his role was flawed. He came here, because he got traded here, 3 years back, came into that Washington game after the trade and had an immediate impact. Credit to him. But he wasn't hurt. He got traded. So, I do think that our patience with him probably has not been adequate enough. But that being said, I love that thought, and I think that I think you're right, too, from a KOC standpoint, from a KO standpoint, right? What are the Packers expecting? Addison, Jefferson. Now you mix in a guy at tight end with fantastic hands. I could easily see that being part of the script as a way to throw the Packers off from the film that they have seen.
And just some additional supporting statistical context here. The Packers aren't great against tight ends either, right? And so you steer into that. You should have a path to success, especially if they don't see it coming, and why would they? Packers right now, this is fantasy points against from the tight end position. They're, I think, 10th, but the Packers have given, in the NFL, they've given up the 10th most. Packers this year to opposing tight ends, they've been targeted 111 times. They've given up 85 receptions and 892 yards. They're a team that you can get with the tight ends. And I big game coming for TJ Hawkinson, in my opinion. I got a couple more for you guys. The next point that I wanted to make was the run game is going to be big here on both sides. And you brought up Jacobs right away. They got to figure out a way to put the clamps on him somehow or slow him down in some way. Love this year, they've sort of refashioned him. He's throwing less, but he has been extremely efficient on those throws. This game, you have Christian Watson out, so the deep element's probably going to be gone. Does that mean they can sneak more guys into the box to meet Mr. Jacobs, whether he is the runner, whether he is the receiver? Flores is so clever, and you have the moving parts, and Metellus, he's there. We're going to get him more in the box in this game. And then the Vikings linebacking core, are we going to have that back to 100%? That would sure help against Josh Jacobs, but that is an obvious key to this game.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say to the Vikings fans then that maybe are a little cautious about forcing Jordan Love's hand, especially with the narrative that I'm sure a lot of fans watched on the Monday Night Football game, where all you hear about the last couple of weeks is how good Jordan Love is in the second half of the season. And obviously it's the Saints. How much do you want to actually factor that in? But allocating a lot of that personnel to getting guys in the box, stopping Josh Jacobs. What would you say to the people that maybe are nervous about letting Jordan Love air it out, even with Christian Watson out?
I think what you do here, and I'm no Brian Flores, and I didn't say in that Holiday Inn Express last night either, but I think getting more guys closer to the box and then screwing with the look right after the snap is the way that you can potentially have it both ways. And you have the movable chess pieces. It's the beauty of Brian Flores' defense. And then also some of these versatile guys that they have brought in. Sometimes during the draft, we'll be like, oh, he's versatile, but it turns out he's just a tweener. And so we have to give the flowers to the Vikings front office for effectively finding the guys that are actually versatile and those sort of move pieces. But if you can get more guys into the box, and then you do the thing of like, I don't know what Flores calls this in his system, but he does some of this. But Brent Venables back at Clemson used to call them replacer blitzes, but where you have guys go into the other assignment and then from the guy that's blitzing, and just screwing with the coverage looks after the snap, the guys coming in the box, running out of the box, you give a weird look to Love right after the snap. And again, with that depreciated wide receiver group, that's where if you can get them into the third and longs, they're already not going to have that explosive element to their offense. So I think that's what you're going to look to do on defense.
How much do you think the potential absence of Smith hurts too? So Smith missed the last game with a foot problem. Post game, KO said that it wasn't a long-term thing, but then Harrison didn't practice on Wednesday. And at his age, I don't think we can just dismiss it, right? Like it's a foot problem for a guy who's been around for a long time, plays a ton of snaps, wear and tear is high. If he can't go, Thor, what's your thought about what the loss of basically a guy who is a coach on the field and is as savvy as it gets in the entire league would mean?
Yeah. I mean, it would certainly, the Vikings do not want to play without Harrison Smith. I think maybe the one, not silver lining, but like the fact that Watson's not there and the Packers probably will not have as much success attempting to stretch the field. Hopefully that mitigates that a little bit. And then also the depth that the Vikings have at that position, if indeed he doesn't end up playing. But yeah, you can't minimize it. You can't just toss it out. Obviously, he's a great player. And in this game, I do think you're going to be moving those guys around and doing the post snap crazy coverage looks. And Harrison Smith, that he's old hat at this. So it would be nice to have him for sure.
Hey, on the coaching front too. So KO's had a great year, and I think that right now he remains the odds-on favorite, Thor, to be the coach of the year. But let's talk about the coaching matchup too, because I think this is really, really intriguing. Matt Lafleur's had a great year, and he has taken, we talk about KO's strengths, but Lafleur offensively has had a great year. Yeah. He has gotten, he is basically, to your point, redone the offense to a certain point to a way more probably run big power game. What do you think of these two? They come from the same tree, but I think it's a really intriguing thing. And I do think flat out, they're probably two of the best coaches in the entire league. So your thoughts on the Lafleur-O'Connell coaching matchup?
It's a fascinating matchup. And in the first one, it was as well. We had a bit of well, maybe not a chess match. It was sort of the tale of two cities in that one, right? Or the tale of two halves. But in this one, of course, you're expecting it to be much closer, a much more of a seesaw. And the ability for Lafleur here not to have a compromised Jordan Love. Recall before that game, I didn't think Jordan Love should have started. It would have been interesting if we had seen Malik Willis and what would have happened. I think the Packers would have had a better shot of winning that game with a full-strength Malik Willis as opposed to Jordan Love was at 60% or whatever. I mean, he was just gimpy back there. And obviously, the outset of the game, he did not play well. And that's how the Vikings could stake out to the huge lead that they ended up holding on to. This game with the full-strength Jordan Love, you're going to have more mobility there. He should have more zip on his passes. He's not a sitting duck back there. What does Lafleur do there? Is it still going to be that sort of Jacobs intensive stuff initially, and then we use Love for the efficiency stuff on the high leverage, or are they going to go against their tendency a bit? I'm sure that was discussed quite a bit early this week in the Packers coaching meetings. Mm-hmm. And then so that's on the Packer offensive side. And I think on the defensive side, now this is Flores and not O'Connell, but the one nitpick that I would have about the defense recently is that blitz that we saw getting home all the time at the beginning of the season, has not been getting home quite as much recently. Will Flores attempt to ratchet that up even more in an attempt to get the pass rush home? And you don't have Watson out there, so maybe he feels that he can leave the secondary a little bit thinner, bring, blitz more guys. Or are you going to go the opposite way this time? And are you going to, will you mime, for instance, out of that packed box look I was talking about before, mime blitzes, but if it's not the run, if it's the pass, have everyone scatter back, and then now Love doesn't know where they're going, and you know what I mean? And you can sort of confuse him in that way. I'm fascinated to see how, and I bet Kevin O'Connell talked with Flores about this week too, of, where on that line of continuum between rushing 4 and the 0 blitzes, where do we want to toggle this thing, in general for this game plan? I think that's going to be a fascinating one to watch too.
Where would you lean towards how you expect this game to go in terms of total score? Because Packers obviously just coming off of a shutout, the first shutout of the season on Monday
AJ's
night.
going to bet he's going to take all the advice that you give Thorsky, and he's going to put the house on it.
Yes, so be careful, because either I'm going to be out on the street next week when I talk to you, or I'm going to be in a mansion. So keep that in mind.
First off, I'll apologize to anyone that took my advice on betting the Tennessee money line last week. That now might be living under a bridge. I still have my house. They haven't kicked me out yet. I haven't gotten foreclosed on. So until I can, I'm taking people in that stepped off the cliff with me on that one. I'm pulling up Underdog. Or wait, who's the sponsor again? For the DFS? I didn't want to. Who's our sponsor?
Gotta go.
Because
I know it's a lot of underdog stuff here.
Phil does prize picks.
Yeah, depends on.
Dex does underdog. Yeah, so.
Okay. Well, we'll use a line from both of them, our title sponsors. TJ Hawkinson, 43.5 receiving yards, 4.5 receptions, going over, and then the rushing and receiving touchdown to go over the half. So anytime touchdown, you're getting a little more than 1.5 to 1 over. We're banging all the TJ Hawkinson ones. As far as the over under, what's our updated total, AJ, in Vegas on this one? 49?
Yeah, I'm seeing 49 or 49.5 across different books.
All right, I'm gonna go under on the game total. I'm gonna go under on that guy. I think we're gonna have a tighter game here and a lower scoring.
So Thor, I feel like we should do a weekly segment, Thorsday. Okay. We all know that you love JJ McCarthy, but every week now I see nothing but fighting about this. So when it comes to Darnold versus McCarthy, what is the stance this week? Because I feel like this is heating up. And it's funny because the Vikings are in the midst of this great year, feel good year. The locker room is harmony. Like this is, I've never seen a Vikings team this at peace, right? And Darnold's been great. You can't sell him short for 1 second. But I feel like in the outside world, on the X machine, as you said, or on Blue Sky, which is supposed to be harmony, I feel like there's this great debate, this great fight about, well, no, it can't be McCarthy now, or no, it can't be Darnold, or whatever. Where do we stand this week on a debate that is certain to rage until I would guess the resolution comes some point in March? Where do you stand right now? Where do we stand?
It can be JJ McCarthy. It will be JJ McCarthy, and it was always JJ McCarthy. Kwesi and the front office that was hired a few years ago, they were working towards the moment they could flip the books over and bring in the cheat code rookie contract. They worked for multiple years to get that done, get that in place. JJ was the guy. The books now have been set under the auspices of the idea of we will be paying a rookie contract to the quarterback, the cheat code thing. So you have, and the way that, people out there, they try to turn this into a debate, right? Of, would you rather?
They have actually.
Would you rather have Sam next year? And how good Sam's playing, or the injured rookie that nobody has ever seen before? It's like, that is not what the question is. The question isn't next year, who will be the better quarterback. I might have a different opinion on that than others, but that is not what the question is. The question is, over the next 3 to 4 years, would you prefer Sam Darnold on the one side, or on the other door, JJ McCarthy, $45 to $50 million per year in salary cap space, which could be converted this year, for instance, into Trey Smith, Milton, the Milton guy from Milton Williams from the Eagles, and then DJ Reed from the Jets. They're going to be those three guys, the AAV. It's going to be somewhere around that low 50s number. So that's what you would be converting the Sam Darnold cap space into.
Correct.
Then also the draft pick compensation you will get for Sam Darnold leaving, whether that is a third-round comp pick in 2026 or whether we can thread that needle for the tag and trade round two and 5. That's what the Panthers got for Brian Burns last year. Mm-hmm. Or could you even end up getting a first-round pick if he keeps playing well? And there's this fervor for him in the open market. If you take that $45 to $50 to $52 million per year long-term, which is what everyone is projecting that Sam Darnold will get now, mm-hmm. and you put it onto the Vikings books, you have blown up all the moves that led up to this and the plan that they have going forward. It is antithetical to the way that they set this entire thing up. It will be JJ McCarthy. It was always JJ McCarthy. Enjoy the rest of this ride. And we are going to have a fun off season as well, because a general manager in Kwesi, who has shown that he can do a lot of damage without much cap flexibility, he is about to have all the ammunition in the world, the 6th most salary cap space, the potential to trade Sam for what would flesh out your draft picks. He has all kinds of flexibility. And again, he has shown that he can dance with flexibility. Get your dancing shoes on, boys, because this offseason we're going to have some fun.
Wow, I love that explanation.
Amazing.
But I do think you're right. Like the more that this plays out, I think the franchise tag comes into play big time here. And look, that doesn't mean that it has to be an acrimonious departure, because they can then trade Sam to a team that he wants to go to, and he will sign a longer term deal there. Like he won't play on that tag. But then that team gets control, and then to your point, you get a 2nd and a 5th, or you get a 1st, or whatever you get. But the one place where you are lacking as a franchise right now is draft pick capital. So that makes sense. The other thing that I don't think we're talking about enough too, like if we want to go down I don't know what qualifies as a conspiracy theory, but the other thing that's sort of the undiscussed thing, because I think it's sort of the unknown, is the Daniel Jones signing.
Yeah.
Because I think it's fair to ask this question, you guys. Why is he here? Now we know that he saw what Darnold has done with KO, right? And so that's intriguing, but he signed to the practice squad, and he's not signed beyond this year. But in my opinion, he is largely going to be, because keep in mind, JJ McCarthy, till he got hurt, was not eliminated as the potential starter for this season. So we can go back and say, well, Darnold was going to start. They were going to start to give JJ first team reps after the Raiders game in Cleveland for those joint practices. Yeah. And quite frankly, he could have beaten out Sam. So I really think that as much as we say, well, Daniel Jones sucked too. Well, remember, that's what we were saying about Sam Darnold. I think he is the replacement for Sam in the world of, if JJ's not healthy enough, if he struggles, if they don't deem him to be prepared to play, and if he can play, guess what? He probably gets a pretty good contract. Let's say 1 year, 10 million or 12 to be the backup to McCarthy. I think we've slept way too much on the Daniel Jones angle.
For sure. Yeah, I think that was telegraphed not just on the Viking side, but importantly from Daniel Jones's.
Correct.
Right? We talked about this at the time. Daniel Jones could have signed with one of them crappy teams that, the quarterback play wasn't very good, to get onto the field right away. But why would he have done that? You're going to get your brains beat in. You don't know the playbook. You're playing with crappy teammates.
The Raiders? Exactly.
Yeah, you're playing out the string there. The people that were like, why wouldn't he do that? Why wouldn't you? Now you can get on the field right away. I'll tell you why. Because he would have had a terrible end of the season for a playing out the string team and a coaching staff that's probably going to get fired after this season. What do you think Daniel Jones's open market is going to be at that point in the offseason? Do you think teams are going to be, is there going to be a huge bidding war for Daniel Jones? He looks even worse than he did when he was starting for the Giants. No. he has already agreed to be, as you said, the Vikings is Sam Darnold next year. That is why he was brought in. It doesn't have to do for this year. I mean, he's break glass in case of emergency if Sam went down for sure. But yeah, you're bringing him in for next year to that and at a similar cap hit that Sam got. I think it's going to be just about the same contract.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. And then keep in mind too, with the Vikings, and I know they've got cap space, okay? So I get that, folks. I understand that completely. But keep in mind too, what Thor is saying is true, which is, think about this team right now. If you had re-signed Kirk, okay, you flat out don't have this defense. Like, this defense is really damn good. Why is it so good? Because they were able to afford pieces that Brian Flores wanted, which you could not have signed them all. Now, maybe you get one of them, but you don't get all of them, okay?
Yeah.
So if you signed, so yes, they could afford to sign Darnold with their cap situation, do a 3-year higher than Baker Mayfield contract. But to your point, Thor, that defeats the whole purpose here.
Sure does.
Why is the Bengals defense so bad? It's partially because they're tied up their contracts. And look, Joe Burrow deserves it.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow, in my opinion, is the dark horse. He won't get it. He won't get talked about. MVP candidate. He's been phenomenal. But the reality is they're paying him. They're going to have to pay Chase. Those contracts are starting to whittle away from the defensive side, right?
Yeah.
So you got to put into perspective to what you're saying, Thor, and I agree completely, but I think we're losing sight of the fact that if Sam Darnold's contract had crippled you from signing more guys, Sam Darnold could be having a great year. Wouldn't matter. You would not be sitting here right now on this incredible season without what you were able to do. And I think I don't think that is brought up enough.
For sure. Judd and AJ, can I ask you guys a question?
Fire away.
Do you guys think that the Atlanta Falcons are Super Bowl frontrunners? Do you think the Atlanta Falcons will win the Super Bowl this year?
No.
Why not?
Huh.
Well, let's see here, because they drafted a quarterback. No, that's not why.
No.
Let's see here, because they signed a quarterback on the free agent market that caught. Yes, that's why.
They had an enormous amount of cap space, and they had a top 10 pick heading into last year, and they had a bunch of other pieces in place.
Yep.
You're telling me that Terry Fontenot, with all the resources he had this offseason, that he didn't create a Super Bowl contender out of it? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Don't tell me that Terry Fontenot put all of his resources into the quarterback position.
You hate Terry Fontenot.
The team and fielding a travesty of a defense that gets lit up every single week. Terry Fontenot shows you how not to build a roster.
Yeah.
Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, over the last year and a half or so, has been putting on a master class of how to do that.
Yes.
Right. And how to set this thing up, not for next year, but for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, decade. That is what is going on here. And everything is set up. I got another example for you guys. And this might even be, I suppose, now that I think about it, breaking news. I don't know if this was ever reported, but it's merely just an example on this. After last season, I think I can say this. After last season, PJ Fleck got a knock on his door in his office, and it was time for Ethan Kaliakmanis's post-season exit interview. People think that Ethan Kaliakmanis was pushed out during that meeting, that Page was like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get another quarterback. Bye-bye. Don't let the door hit you on the butt. It's not what happened. Kaliakmanis went in there and said, I was the starter this year. Think we did okay. The going rate for quarterbacks in the Big Ten is X amount more than you have given me through the Dinkytown NIL, the NIL
collective. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he said, whatever it was, the number that ate them on, double, triple, whatever it was. And he said, that's what I'm going to need to come back next year. And Pete was like, okay, no. And Ethan's like, I'll transfer.
This is breaking news. You are breaking news right now, dude.
And Peach is like, okay. And he's like, no, I will transfer. And Peach is like, sweet, good luck. They ended up giving essentially the exact same package that Kaliakmanis was on to Max Brosmer. There might have been 5 or 10 more tacked onto it, but it was very, very similar. You have a similar thing here with the market force. Now, not same situation whatsoever. But the people that are like, oh, just roll it back. Thor, why, Thor, why don't you want to have both of them here next year? Sam's playing so good. Why do you hate Sam, Thor? And do you don't know with JJ and he's injured and et cetera, et cetera. It's because you only have so many friggin' resources. PJ Fleck can't go out and sign everybody. He can't give Ethan Kaliakmanis whatever he wants. We are in a closed system, right? There is a salary cap. You can only funnel a certain amount of resources into one specific position before the rest of your team withers on the vine and dies. That's what's happened to the Atlanta Falcons. And turns out the PJ Fleck made a correct decision with his quarterback as well. I'm pretty certain that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and KOC will as well.
Dude, that's breaking news right there.
There you go.
Heard that story.
We're breaking news.
Okay. You just created some more work for me after the show, so thank you very much. I want to know who you have who do you have a bigger beef with? Because I know you're not a huge Rick Spielman guy, but I didn't know you weren't a big Terry Fontenot guy either. So
no, well, yeah, I mean, I don't like Spielman personally, and Terry Fontenot is one of the great sources of unintentional comedy that I have seen in professional football over the last decade. So who do I like more? It's definitely Terry Fontenot. The Falcons will fire him in about a month and change here. Man, I wish I could send Arthur Blank something to change his mind. Terry Fontenot, I've loved having you in my life. And if we could get you there for the next 20 years as well, thank you so much for giving us J.J. McCarthy the way that Mike Mayock back in the day was like, you know what, we could take Christian Darrisaw here, but the Vikings are right behind us. They could use Christian Darrisaw for the next decade more. I'm going to take Alex Leatherwood, a guy who is going to be out of football within 2 years. Terry, we love you.
I love that. I love that. All right, last question for you as a football fan, okay? This actually goes back to the college game, but
yeah,
you're passionate about it, so I want to know your expert opinion here. I like the college football playoff being expanded, okay? I have no complaints about that. I think it's going to expand more, partially because that will create more potential income from the networks, but all of the games in the first round were disappointing. The Vols Buckeyes game, to your point, was the one I thought would be the saving grace game, and it was not. Does something have to be changed here? Because going in, the only thing I didn't like is I don't like giving every conference champion a bye. Like I think that sets up problems because Arizona State, okay, they might deserve to be in. I don't think that they are worthy of a bye. But what would be your thoughts on a fix? Is a fix necessary? Was this just sort of an aberration? Because it does amaze me that we didn't get like one really down to the wire great first round game, but also it's year one of the entire format.
Yes, there will be amendments to that and updates. And I'm the last person in the world that's going to complain about a 12-team playoff because, this is something that we have wanted for a long time. And it's the first incarnation of it. But yeah, Judd, to your point, you see right away some flaws with the thing that they set up. The top four seeds of it getting buys and they have to be the conference winners. It's like on the surface beforehand, it was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But then this year you see like the 5, 6, 7, 8 seeds are all better than the 3 and 4 seed. And then some teams got the advantageous path through, and then other teams that probably just like Oregon right now, their reward for being the undefeated number 1 seed is they have to play Ohio State. That looks really, really good right now. Yeah. So
too early too.
It's it definitely is too early. Now, do I know? No, these meetings haven't happened yet. They're, things that are going on in the heads of some of these people for a meeting in the off season. But where I would suggest this goes next, the obvious step to 16, which, and you could go a little bit above that and start doing the buys thing again. I think let's just start at 16. That's where we go next. And one of the extra teams that gets in, you can either do it sort of a ceremonial reward for the Pac-12, because the Pac-12, not next year, but the year after that, Boise State is joining what is now the 2-pack with Oregon and Washington State. And then they got like 5 or 6 other MWs, the Mountain West teams. So they will be a qualifier potentially for an automatic bid for their conference champion. You could either give them one. So then it would be, you'd have the 5 Power 5s again, plus the G5, you'd let in 6, or you could do for that one, instead of saying Pac-12, you just say top 6 conference winners as far as where they're ranked, get in automatically. And then you're going to expand the wild cards a little bit, right? Right now you got, was it 7? And then in that system, I suppose it would be 10.
Yeah.
I think that's where I would go next. And it's no problem. That thing would play out on the same timeline that this one does. By the way, I don't think it's any problem to go to 32 either. And do I think we're headed there? Yeah, I do. This one might take a little bit longer. By this time, JJ McCarthy's fingers are all going to be filled with rings once we get to 32, but I do think it's coming.
Did you see a common theme too? Why all the games weren't like why didn't we get a good game? Because there were some matchups, Thor, that weren't bad. It's like, yes, a few were, but Penn State wins by a bunch. Was there a common theme, in your opinion, about why it turned into so many blowouts and lopsided games?
I'm going to ask this one to AJ because I know what your answer is, Jeff. But AJ, do you play College Football 25 on PS5?
I do. Fresno State is a powerhouse under my regime. I'll tell you that much right now.
I love that. You're rolling back the clock like a Pat Hill. Mm-hmm. The thing with the stadium meter in the top right. Yes. When you're on the road, the atmosphere, and it's like the thing is at the top. I think this was an all-time break the stadium meter weekend where these underdogs going into the opposing team's home stadium, it's like you're playing. Indiana on Friday night, they literally stepped onto the field for the first ever 12-team playoff game. And Indiana, they won 2 games last year, a long time futility. And now all of a sudden you're in this like crazy new world. It was almost like you had stepped into a science fiction, and then the next day, those underdogs too, like Tennessee is used to the SEC environments for sure. But now you're going into Columbus at night, with the raucous college playoff, all that sort of the pomp and circumstance with it. Tennessee travel well in that game. But still the team appeared spooked coming out. Sure. I think that was a part of it. And it's something that, in the future, you're going to have some of that. We expanded to 16. It's not like that's going away. But I also think, it's like, oh, well, then get rid of it. Let's go back to 4. No. We have 64 in college, the men's tournament, whatever that is. And it's like, well, just give the one team's buys because the 16 loses every time until they don't, right? And in the future, you will have as it would be in the basketball one, you will have a couple 15 upset too right away. You will, at some point in the future, way down, you might even have that 16th seed upset the 1. We go forward in this thing. You're going to, again, the matchups, of course, are going to benefit the home team that is the better team, whatever. But we will see some games the other way, and that will be an all-time story when you see like the super low seed for the first time ever rise up in the college football playoff.
And what's your take, Thor, on some of the discourse that stemmed from, I want to say it was Kirk Herbstreit's comments about maybe Indiana getting their wins valued more than, say, a team that had a quote unquote stronger schedule getting into the playoff over. More than likely, the team reference there is Alabama or something along those lines. I know some people are saying, like, well, if you win games, why is that not being factored in? Where, what's your take on that whole discourse, I guess? Do you think Alabama got snubbed? Do you think that teams wrongfully got into this initial look of the 12-team playoff?
Not really. You could have done, I think the argument was Alabama against SMU. Like Indiana with the 1 loss in the Big Ten. You're going to have a scandal if you leave them out. Yeah. But SMU against Alabama, I think that was an interesting one. Sure. But I think that they made, like, if you want to be like, who is the better team? And that's who, it probably should have been Alabama. But the resumes were close. The quality wins, the strength of schedule against the wins that you had, et cetera. And the committee made the correct decision because if you omit SMU after they were projected to get into the field the week before conference title weekend, and then they go and they lose to Clemson, and now you omit them what it would have set up in the future is a precedent where teams would have withdrawn from their conference title game. You can't punish a team for participating in it, which is what would have happened if SMU had gotten omitted. So, I mean, do I think Alabama would have been more competitive than SMU? In Indiana? Yeah, I do. But I also think more or less that the correct decision was made within the sort of guidelines that they got. And then this situation that we were in this year.
And no great team got snubbed. Like the problem with 4 being in is 5 was really good team. And then you're like, they got completely screwed. Right. But like, as we expand now, like this was not about one team got left out. And by the way, in the field of 4 in the semifinals, we saw some really bad games too. But that was like, okay, the 5th team should have been in and they didn't get in. This to me was more of a feeling out process. I think they 100% did the right thing here. I think the expanded field is great. I think 16 is coming next. But yeah, it's not like, well, Bama was this great team. No, they were a good team, but they were not a great team. So, all right.
Judd, yes. I have one other thing on this. And if you guys don't mind, I would like to break another piece of news here.
Oh, God, more work for AJ. Go right ahead.
That's fine. Bring it on. I got nothing going on.
AJ, clear the rest of your day.
Clear the calendar.
This is pursuant to the idea of the college football playoff with a bit of a local twist. And I don't know how much of this is out there either, but
here we go.
Coy Parrish coming back this year. And that was a kid that probably could have gotten more money, especially if he had looked elsewhere. Wasn't interested at all. At all. He didn't even want to hear the offers. Coming back for the sophomore season where Coy wants to play more offense next year. Right. He is already the superstar on defense. He is multi-skilled, talented, etc. with some of the craziest ball skills that remember that one interception he jumps over everybody.
Yeah. Oh, he's phenomenal.
He's like, my ball. These kids like, he was just at high school prom and now he's out there mossing people as a defender.
Yeah.
They used him a bit as a receiving back late in the season after practicing him there for a month. I don't think he is going to do the receiving back thing next year, though, because Darius Taylor, who also is coming back, wants to keep catching the ball, something that happened a lot more this year. And Darius thinks that that's important for his NFL eval, and he's right. It is. Where the Gophers need help, it's at wide receiver. I think you're going to see Coy Parrish playing way more offense next year as a receiver to help flesh that thing out there. And I believe he will start to get a vote to Travis Hunter as well. It's not the same thing, but he is going to be your best two-way star next year in college football. And the other thing that I wanted to say vis-a-vis that college football playoff is it's extremely important that the Gophers are good next year. Not necessarily that they get all the way to crash that party, although Coy believes that they could. But he wants to see the team competing next year. I'll go back to the college football 25 game, AJ. When the players enter the portal and it's always because they have a deal breaker, you have a whole bunch of deal breakers, right? Like some it's like coach prestige, championship contender, proximity to home, like whatever. And if you go beneath that specific thing, then they enter the portal. Coy Parrish's deal breaker has less than zero to do with money. The only chance that you see Coy Parrish walk after his sophomore season is if the Gophers are not as competitive as he thinks that they will be. If the Gophers are not great next year, that's what you got to watch out for there.
What do you feel the bar is then for what is successful for that? Like, is that like consideration for the playoff or just getting to a prestigious bowl game, or what is that bar set at?
Wants to be in competition for the college football playoff. I don't think that they need to get into it, but they need to. That's sort of the, 8+ wins. I think 8 wins is probably your floor that you need to get to convince him to come back. This is not only does he want to be on the big stage and ball, he wants to do it here, right? The whole point being, if that is not available in his head heading into the junior season, that's where he would probably start to listen. They just need to win.
My mind is blown by the amount of breaking news on a Thorsday. I believe this is a first. two pieces of breaking news.
When Phil and Dex are out, the Cats will play.
The Cats did
Or
play.
the Mice will play, or whatever.
Who cares? Whatever it is, Thor, that was fantastic stuff. A Thorsday is complete. Who needs Phil? Who needs Dex? AJ, Judd, and Thorsky is all you need. Thanks for watching Purple Daily. The goal, of course, is to win a Super Bowl before we die.